Your speaker today is Rear Admiral J R Haley. Admiral Haley is from Irving, Texas, and a graduate of the U.S. Naval Academy. Our friend Chris made sure that I should say, go Navy. Admiral Haley started his career as a naval flight officer and was then selected to pilot training. Haley has more than 3,500 flight hours and 1,100 carrier landings. Haley has served many roles, including Deputy Chief of Staff to Commander U.S. Pacific, Commanding Officer of USS George Washington, and Commander Naval Air Forces Atlantic. His awards include the Legion of Merit, Distinguished Flying Cross, Defense Meritorious Service Medal, Meritorious Service Medal, Air Medal, 3 individual and 6 strike flight, and other campaign and unit awards. Without further ado, we're ready.
Well, it's an honor to be asked to speak to you today, and I know that we're going to have a time limit here, and the great thing is that you brought your kids to impose that time. I'm sure that she'll let me know if we start running over. So I wanted to take an opportunity. I'll try to get through what I have planned here so that we can ask some questions. And I know that there are probably some questions out there because we have a lot going on in the Navy right now, not just in the Navy, but also in the entire defense organization. But I'll talk a little bit about, did anybody see the movie A Dog's Purpose? Anybody see that movie? Okay, I would highly recommend you go see that movie, and I would highly recommend that you go alone because you're going to be embarrassed if you go with your friends. So it's about a dog that is reincarnated. And so his first life, he's one dog, and then his next life, he's another dog, and he gets to experience the various things that dogs experience, from the highs of being a police dog to the lows of being stuck in the dog pound, you know. And it sort of talks about, you know, he sees himself as a puppy, and then he goes on to be an older dog, and then towards the end, he's in his twilight, and then he wakes up again and he's a puppy again. And it's sort of like this deja vu thing all throughout the movie. So after the movie, as I was driving, I said, you know, I find it remarkable how our life cycles are very similar to what was depicted in that movie. We don't die between those life cycles, but we still have those life cycles. And I'll give you an idea of what I'm talking about there. You know, from when you're an infant and a child until you become older and you're a retiree. You know, when you're an infant, you can't wait to grow older. You want to make your parents happy, but you also want to evolve into having control of your own life. So as an infant or as a child, we see ourselves with great capabilities. Those capabilities are unrecognized, and we long to have the time pass quickly because, my golly, we're ready right now for the responsibility and rewards of the next phase of our life. Can't wait to get there. We don't need anybody to tell us where to go, when to be there, how to do it, or what we can do better. So now, we go on throughout life, or throughout our life as a child doing that until we get to be about 14. Okay? Until we're 14, the overriding thing is to make our parents happy. And you get to be about 14 and some switch clicks. And you realize that, hey, you know, I can drive better than Dale Earnhardt, not to mention way better than my parents. And I don't understand why nobody can see that. Nor can they see that I can drink without getting drunk. I'm ready for college now, at least ready for fraternities, etc. I'm ready now. Get out of my way. Then you graduate. You're 18 years old, and you're like, okay, I'm here. I can vote. I can drive. I can stay out all night. I'm an adult. I can wake up when I want to. I can go to sleep when I want to. Generally, I can run my own life. Fortunately, still subsidized, thank goodness, by our parents. Until we report to the Naval Academy, or report to NC State University, or report as a freshman in some higher institution, or find a job. Then, you know, you're warned. You're warned that before you go into that situation, that you're going to be back on the lower part of the pecking order again. You're not the senior anymore. And you're still incredulous that these morons that are around you don't understand that, like them, you're adults. You're a high school graduate. You're ready for the world, and you do not need education, correction, or other forms of improvement. And so this happens. You go on through your college career, you graduate, and you're like, okay, next cycle of life, I'm ready. And then you find your first job, and you find out, I'm not a college graduate anymore. I'm the lowest form of life in this organization. And so it's deja vu all over again. So by now you can see where I'm going. Like in the movie, you work hard, you develop quickly into capable leaders, but you're not recognized until the end of that cycle. And then when you're recognized, you go back, and you're very impatient that entire time to move on, to run your life the way you want to, and move on into the next phase of life. You're ready for more. You want time to pass faster. You want to promote faster. And you want to realize more responsibility faster. So now, there are a lot of these cycles. And so I keep doing these cycles. And then my last cycle in the Navy was as a flag officer. I'm an admiral on a ship or at Air Lab, commanding a lot of people. And I realized that once again, I'm being told where to go, when to be there, how to do it, and what I can do better, just like when I was a teenager. I'm like, oh, I'm back. I'm an admiral, but I'm still not running my own life. And so, I think that as my wife can tell you, I no longer know how to do all those things without a staff to keep me busy. And so now my staff is me. And I'm like a toddler again. Somebody comes up to me and says, that's not the way you're supposed to do it. And I'm like, oh, okay, tell me the way to do it. But I'm 58 years old. So seriously, my point in all this is that we spend our lives wanting to live forward. We want to live forward because we're ready for the next assignment. We're ready now for more responsibility, the next challenge, the next promotion, the next opportunity. We're type A people who know that we can do the boss's job better than the boss. And we excel and we want to get there now. That's generally the life that I led in the military. And when you surround yourself with a bunch of type A people that think that way. But now that I'm no longer a part of our Navy, I realize that I need to spend more time enjoying where I am when I'm there. Sure, I could be better I could be a better boss than my boss. And by the way, I think that's a sign of great leadership when you develop young men and women in a culture that empowers them to perform above their position, and they want to be your replacement. But when we do that, we sometimes lose sight of enjoying where we are. And I'll gladly return to being a lieutenant, except for maybe not having to repeat that first year at the Naval Academy where they beat you up. But believe it or not, as a 28-year-old lieutenant, that's where I had the most control of my life. And it's also where I had the most impact on sailors, the most impact on the young Americans that were going to move forward. That last part, impact on sailors, impact on the great Americans that work with us, is where our best measure of ourselves as leaders resides. And there are leaders out there who retired at a far lower rank than I did. They have a metric, in my opinion, that qualifies them as some of our best leaders. They're the retired senior enlisted guys, the retired chiefs, the retired sergeants, the 20-year lieutenant commanders, who yesterday prioritized developing young Americans into today's leaders, and sometimes prioritized it over their own careers. Now I'm going to give you a break for a factoid quiz here, and also make sure that I'm still on time there. We're doing okay. So now, speaking of developing young leaders, who here, first of all, is there anybody that has been in the Navy on an aircraft carrier? Okay, good. So I don't have to exclude anybody from this question. So who can tell me the median age of the young man or the young woman who goes out onto the aircraft carrier flight deck when we're doing flight operations? When I taxi my jet up to the catapult, there's no window in the bottom of the airplane, by the way. The stuff's going on down there, hooking you up to take off, and you don't know what's going on. You're pressing the I believe button. So there's a young man or a young woman who goes underneath that airplane and hooks your airplane up correctly. and it comes out and gives a thumbs up and says it's ready to go. So now while they're doing this, you can't hear anything because the jets are really loud. My jet's about 75% power, then I go to full power, so there's an intake sucking about 100,000 cubic feet of air a minute into that jet, and you can suck you right up there if he makes a wrong move. And he's responsible, or she's responsible, for making sure that I go flying into the air and not into the water. So I'm placing my entire life in this person's hand. And you'd say, well, that's really important to me, but more important to the Navy is I'm placing a 70 or 60 or $50 million asset in the hands of this great American that's down here. So now, that's a pretty important job. Median age. What's the median age? You're close. You're close. Anybody else have something? And it's in years and months.
20 years, 10 months.
Okay, you're still closer.
15 years, 6 months.
Okay, you're 2 months off. 19 years, 8 months. And I took that very scientifically when I was the CEO of Theodore Roosevelt. I just said, okay, all you guys line up what your age is. But my point is that we instill a lot of trust and responsibility into folks at a very young age. And that makes them want to do even more, want to do better, want to live forward, want to attain responsibility faster, etc. And I think that one of those things that we think about is that when we're placing all that responsibility into the lives, or of the lives of pilots, and all the responsibility for the expensive airplane into those individuals. And these are kids from South Dakota, Philippines, Harlem, Floribama, all sorts of places, all over the world, truly all over the United States. And they're all less than 20 years old. And the fact that they do this and do it well, then progress on to become flight deck handling officers, gunners, pilots, commanding officers, etc. That's a testament not to the flag officers like me, but to those who, like many of you, trained young Americans to advance and do things that they really want to do. So some of you served years ago and some of you have not served, but I would tell you that organizations like the Rotary Club, you get that same feeling. You work with great Americans, and you walk out this door and you want to get a picture of what the future is going to be like. Look at those kids playing around. 15 years from now, those guys are going to be going to NC State University. 25 years from now, they might be sitting in the jet of an airplane, in a jet airplane on an aircraft carrier getting ready to take off, or hooking that airplane up. So you see riots in the streets, you see demonstrations on campuses, all the heinous crimes committed on TV, all the negative things that seem to plant doubt about where we're going as a country today. And that is free press, and it's a good thing. We need to have our actions questioned publicly by free press, and to ensure that continued freedoms that our forefathers promised us in the Constitution are maintained. But please don't take all those reports as reflective of the majority of our country and truly the majority of our youth. You're seeing a snapshot of what sells TV, what sells radio, what sells newspapers. There's a large number of young men and young women who are 19 years and 8 months old who are making you proud of your service decades ago. They may have different political opinions. They may have different views on where we should go as a country, and indeed, I can guarantee you they have a different way of dressing. They're the same guys that have their ball caps on backwards, their pants down around their ankles, and all this other stuff. But when they step on that aircraft carrier, they have their game face on. They're from diverse religions, different races, different orientations, different nationalities, different economic backgrounds, and yes, even different political parties. But when they're on that flight deck, and they're on the business end of business, they have their game face on, and they know that they're the keepers of freedom, trained by leaders in business, leaders in the military, just like the leaders in this room. Have confidence, they're smarter than we are, because we made them that way. So now, I'll wrap up here with something that CNO John Richardson, Chief of Naval Operations John Richardson, a great American who's faced with running the entire Navy. He's 35 plus years older than these young Americans that we talked about hooking up airplanes, but he definitely understands where they're coming from. He knows where we're going as a country, the challenges we face. He has provided, through several engagements with retired flag officers like myself and the current flag officer community, some concise and well thought out aspects that he sees as critical to the future. So if you give me just one more minute, I'll share some of the things that he provided. He has 3 main points. First, he says, today we're facing increased competition from bad actors. Today and into the future, you can expect more and more competition from Russia, China, Iran, North Korea, ISIS, state actors, non-state actors, etc. The Navy is the away team. We're the guys, we in the Marine Corps are the guys that are going to go out and engage before they get here. Number 2, to handle these, we have to grow in size and capability. And we have to do that inside of a competition. That is a competition that breeds good things, not bad. That competition, if we're going to be too small in places where and when it matters, we have to grow in a little bit of size, but also need to have the right types of ships, the right mix of ships and planes, the right weapons for the future. Finally, and this is his most important point, it's about the people. It's all about the team. We can have the best equipment, we can have the best ships, we can have the best airplanes, but it's not going to come together unless we have the right team. Our asymmetric advantage, truly what other countries that are big, like Russia and China, see as our advantage is the quality of our people. And we need to continue to recruit and retain the very best. So I think you can see from what I provided as perspective into what our young Americans are capable of doing, and also what CNO Richardson sees as the most important things for our Navy, that describes why, although we face huge challenges in the future, those that we trained, those folks that are carrying on after we have left, they're educated and they're mentored by great Americans out at sea, and they're more than capable of facing those challenges that we face today in Sparta. So thanks for the opportunity to address you today and share my perspective, and may God bless you, and I'll take some questions.